I think the thing that stands out to me most about the BYU game, and obviously when we're talking about, what we saw from BYU, the offensive line's an absolute game changer. I don't know how you, in any other way, shape, or form, I don't know how you have any level of disappointment with what we saw from that entire unit. I mean, the one thing that we talked about that was a must for BYU going into that game is that they be able to dominate in road grade through that offensive line. And the other thing that stood out with that was I thought Pini Katoa actually played very well. I think we all knew what Chris Brooks could be, but I thought it was very interesting that, you have so much domination up front. And South Florida, let's be honest, South Florida is not a pushover.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been easy, especially with the lightning delays and the weather delays, the hydration issues we saw. It would have been easy to go down to Tampa and fold, and you could have justified that loss, but you didn't. You went down there and dominated, and frankly, I think, again, the only negative that I take out of this game, obviously the Puka Nacua injury, but
right.
The only negative I take out of this game is that you didn't score more points. And you would love to have scored 60 points in this game. You could have probably done that. But my point is, I don't know that this could have gone any better for BYU.
No, and I think that the part about being mentally tough and the part about, all the hurdles you deal with, those things that you were listing off, I think that's a huge factor. And I think it really speaks to I think it speaks to this whole sports science thing that they have going on in their program. If you followed the team last week, Kalani spoke on it, Jaron spoke on it. Like, it was a big thing with them taking care of their bodies and everything that they have going on. But I really think the mental toughness and the discipline part is at an all-time high for BYU, and I think that is it's great to see. It would have been kind of easy, I feel like, to come out and have a real tough game and win this game by like a touchdown maybe and have it be a really tight game, frankly, an uncomfortable win on the road because of all this stuff we had to deal with, and we just pulled it out and everything was fine, But you didn't do that. You came out, you dominated, you did your job, you ran behind LeChance, like you road graded this team, you did everything that I would expect a BYU team to do. And I don't mean to wax poetic about BYU, but I just think they deserve credit for dealing with literally we're like sitting here in Hawaii trying to stream the game on ESPN, and we're messaging with people and talking to people, and we get 4 lightning strikes later, and then they're finally playing, and so to be delayed, I think it was ultimately like 2 hours or whatever it ended up being, and there was just a lot that you had to deal with, and so I feel like they deserve a lot of credit for that, and I'm really pleased with how they performed.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is also very interesting is that right side of the offensive line that you talked about, absolutely. Harris LeChance at guard is a monster. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just no other way to categorize that other than he is an absolute beast in there.
Yes.
And I think that makes a huge difference because I think when we saw Harris out last year and injured, it was a real loss for BYU, but you look at the rest of that offensive line and you look at the damage they did running over that right side. And I'm not saying the left side was weak by any, measure, but you look at the right side of that BYU offensive line, I think you might have found something special there.
Yeah. And I think that Harris is his size, but his athleticism, I think, is what is special. You get somebody who not only can dominate at the point of attack, but he can get out in front of you and run down the field and knock dudes over. And I think that ultimately is what separates an elite offensive lineman from just like an average Joe offensive lineman, when you can get someone who's athletic for their size and can get out and run. And that's what we saw. And frankly, I think Brooks deserves a lot of credit too. I mean, dude had a big game. I mean, he came out, made a great first impression, and I know that everyone was like, oh, well, how are they going to replace Tyler Algier? And Tyler Algier's the greatest thing since sliced bread at BYU's running back room. Like,
okay,
dude, like, down. I mean, but I feel like that's what we heard. And again, all due respect to Algier, I know he did, broke records, set records, did great things, but that's in the past now. He's not here anymore. He's in the league now, and I think that Brooks deserves that opportunity to be the guy. And frankly, I feel like he delivered. I feel like he was everything that you would want him to be in his debut. So I think, again, I just think for BYU, you couldn't have asked for a better start. Would it have been nice to put 60 on the board? Absolutely. I'm always a big believer in that. I'm always a big advocate of that for BYU specifically.
Like the Advocates?
Yes, like the Advocates. I'm an advocate, for scoring 60 points a game. When you can do that, because how many times this year, with the schedule being as tough as it is, are you going to be able to do that? And so that's why I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, and I also think this sets you up now with Baylor coming in this weekend. You're a 3-point favorite at home, which basically means it's a pick 'em because you get 3 to be at home. But I think now this sets you up for a better ranking this week. I would be shocked if you're not in the top 20. I think it certainly gives you that momentum that you're going to need because you're coming out of this game relatively healthy, it would appear. You come out of this game feeling really good about the way Jaren played. For the most part, I felt like Jaren avoided the big hit. I felt like he avoided the big mistake very clearly.
Yes.
And I think that's because they were able to do so much early. I mean, to have a 75-yard touchdown on the first snap of the season was absolutely spectacular. To have the defense get off the field. The one thing about the defense, though, we saw drop 8, rush 3. And that's a little frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, we specifically spoke on that last week, and I think that you're not going to be able to just run this soft zone coverage type defense and think that you're going to beat a lot of teams. I mean, you're just not going to be able to do that, and I think that at some point, and again, we said this last week, you're going to have to be able to play man. You're going to have to do that, and I think when you get to when you get to these bigger games, when you get to Notre Dame after what you saw with them this week, when you get to the bigger teams on your schedule, you have to execute and you have to be able to handle your assignment. You've got to be able to win your individual assignment, and I think that BYU, while I do, like I said, I love the performance this week. I think that you executed on pretty much every front, but to your point, the defense can't be running out zone schemes against some of the better teams on your schedule.
Not.
And think that, hey, like our guys are always going to be in the right spot in their zone coverage because, frankly, a good quarterback, someone who didn't do what you saw this week against Bohannon, like a good quarterback is going to exploit zone coverage. A good quarterback is going to be on the same page with his wide receivers, and those wide receivers are going to understand how to break the route off and sit into the open space. And that, to me, is what is concerning. So I just think that at some point, BYU needs to show that ability. Now, I don't know if that was a scheme based on the fact that they were well ahead in this game and you were just going to play soft defense and keep everything in front of you. I could kind of understand that. But on the other side of it, I also feel like, hey, you were up by a ton. Let's see what you can do in man, and let's see, hey, if one of our guys does get burned, that's a learning lesson. We're not going to lose this game. So I could kind of see it both ways. And I think that for BYU, it's just a great way to start the season. Yes, there are things you can get better at. Yes, there are things you can execute better on, but they had a hell of a week, and I just think that you can't really ask for much better.
I guess I would just say that the things that stand out to me as far as asking for better, and this is a question that I think we're all going to have to be accountable for as the season goes on, is how much of what we're feeling today about BYU, and really I think Utah is in the same boat, how much of what we're feeling about BYU today is legit? How much of what we're feeling about BYU is hype? Because I am pleasantly surprised at how dominant the offensive line was. I am pleasantly surprised that one of the keys we talked about in this game, dominant linebacker play, absolutely manifested itself.
Right.
I am pleasantly surprised to see, the both sides of the ball carrying their weight, special teams carrying their weight. Like, everything went fine. You came out of this game pretty healthy. It looks like Nakua escaped serious injury, even though he was in a boot. Precautionary. That could have easily been a broken leg.
Right. Yes.
I don't think there's any doubt about
and
that.
I think a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah.
Right when it happened. I mean, it looked pretty bad.
I, for one, was really concerned for him.
Yes.
Coming out of that. But how much of what you're feeling today, and I would love to see this in the comments this morning as we talk BYU football here on the show presented by the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. I mean, how much of what you're feeling today is legitimate when it comes to BYU?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the energy around the program is emotion. I mean, obviously week one, like there's a lot on the line this season. I think, again, with you didn't know this before the game, obviously, but now with what's happened in the Pac-12 and what we talked about last week with the Big 12, like coming out and making a statement, especially after Oregon got embarrassed and Utah lost a heartbreaker, like, obviously the Pac-12 didn't have a great weekend, and I think for BYU, you need to feel really strongly about the position that you're in. So how real is what you're feeling? I mean, obviously, I think it's quite real. I think that a lot of people understand, like, hey, yes, we had a great weekend. Like, we dealt with adversity. We went out a day early on this trip to execute and deal with the humidity and deal with the issues. Didn't really see a ton of issues with cramping for BYU, and conversely, again, not to hate on Utah, we saw that all day against Florida in the second half. The third quarter was riddled with, hey, I got a cramp, I got this, I'm down on the field, the game's got to stop. So I just think you have to give credit where credit's due. And frankly, if the roles were reversed, I'd be saying the same thing about BYU. If they had struggled with conditioning and hydration and how they feed their players and everything like that. So as far as how real are the feelings, I think the feelings are very real. I think that you should be positive today. You should be like, yes, we went out and handled our business. We put up 55 points. We won this game comfortably. We executed. Yes, are there things on defense I would like to see, adjusted? Are there things on defense I would like to change a bit to kind of test us and see exactly what our mettle is in straight up one-on-one single high safety coverage? Yes, there is. However, that doesn't mean that you had a bad weekend at all. I just think that you should feel very positive today because, frankly, and we're going to get to Utah here in a couple of minutes, the conversation around Utah is not a pretty one. It's not one that's real positive.
I think the conversation around the Pac-12 on the whole is not positive. But, look, I think with this difficult of a schedule for BYU, man, this could not have gone any better.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll say before we get to everybody's comments on BYU football, the mental toughness is that one little attribute that I think we learned about BYU this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That weather delay could easily have derailed this team.
Mm-hmm.
And when you saw all of those delays and you saw everything that BYU was dealing with, I just don't think there's any doubt that – and honestly, if we were sitting here today talking about, they lost 28-27 or, they lost on some mental mistakes, the lightning delay, you were ready, then you weren't ready. Absolutely.
Yes.
We don't have to say that today because here we are with BYU coming through that with no excuses, making no excuses, asking for no excuses because they won the game and they won it convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that mental toughness is something that we've all questioned about BYU over the last 3 to 5 years, right?
Yes.
When you change head coaches, and I think this is a critical point.
Yeah.
With Kalani Sitake, there's been questions about his willingness to stomp on people.
Mm-hmm.
There's been questions about his football team's level of what's the right word? Nastiness,
ruthlessness, ruthlessness, killer mentality, relentlessness.
We've literally seen opponents punch BYU football players in the face and they not defend themselves. We saw that last year.
Yeah.
I don't think we're seeing that this year.
Yeah.
I think this team showed some little characteristics, whether it was, putting the 50 points up, whether it was, being really tough, dominating the point of attack, running the ball, throwing the ball,
mm-hmm.
being explosive, running offensive sets in formations, groupings, running patterns, route trees that we're
mm-hmm.
not used to seeing BYU run.
Yeah.
Maybe this truly is, we're not that little independent, locomotive
little
that
guy.
could. Hey, can we get up the hill? Maybe BYU's at the top of the hill, and maybe they realize, we're going into the Big 12. We got to act like it now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that really stood out to me anyway.
Yeah, and look, again, I think that, you're starting to see, I feel like, Kalani's program sort of mature a bit and come up, and I think that the conversation around replacing your attrition every single year was kind of a struggle for BYU the first couple of years, as it is with any coach when he takes over a program, and you got to kind of build that thing and get your recruiting pipeline going, and I think now you're starting to see the fruits of that labor 3, 4, 5 seasons ago, because now the cycle is in place for Kalani, and so he's always got talent to work with. He's always got the next Jaron or the next Jacob Conover or the next quarterback coming in. He's always got the guys that he needs to go out and do a job. Because frankly, if I'm BYU, mentally speaking, I'm not saying to myself, man, like, yeah, USF is definitely a game that we should just kind of roll through. They're obviously not saying that, and I think in the program, what you're ultimately saying is something around, hey, like, we got to come out and make a statement week one. Like, we don't have the opportunity to just kind of be, average. That's not how it works at BYU,
No.
and we have to execute at a higher level. And again, I just think I don't mean to be like Mr. Nice Guy in BYU or wax poetic, but I there would be an equal amount of hate for BYU if they had come out and laid a duck and lost by 3 points in a heartbreaker. That's the reality of the situation.
That would have been a disaster for this football team.
Yeah.
I think if you'd have gone, and I don't care how it played out, I think if you'd have gone to South Florida and lost this game, I think it would have absolutely been a disaster and just not something that, frankly, you could have done or justified. I just think that it's one of those things where this is what BYU had to do. Because, again, I think overwhelmingly BYU has to meet a much better bar. They have to do it bigger and better than Utah, than Weber. Like, nobody's going to lose a minute of sleep that Utah State lost 55-0 to Alabama.
Right, yeah.
Nobody.
Because that was the expectation, with all due respect.
Absolutely. The expectation was that BYU would go to South Florida and win.
Yes.
I don't know that anybody thought they'd go to South Florida and dominate. I think you and I had it, in the 30s to 20s.
Yeah. A much closer game for sure. I mean, I think when you roll out and you open the game the way they open the game, it just sets the tone, especially after lightning strike, like delay. Like, there was a lot of feeling of like, man, like we were sitting around in the crib here in Hawaii, like, hey, we're trying to stream this thing and it's delay. And we start talking about like, hey, like how are their bodies going to react? How is all of this going to work for BYU? Because again, it's not good enough to come out and struggle physically. It's not good enough to come out and be, again, not to be harsh, but like mentally soft or mentally weak or not be mentally engaged. And that's why I say, like, if you live in Salt Lake City and you're a football fan and you're engaged in this conversation, there is a ton of contrast within these two games for Utah and BYU. And I'm not even talking just from a football perspective. I think this conversation around conditioning and whether you should hit in camp and like how you go about it is a huge conversation for these two teams right now.
Huge. Yeah, I totally agree. We're going to get to Utah football here in 10 minutes, but let's get some conversations going on BYU. BYU beats USF 50-21 in Tampa on a hot, humid Saturday late afternoon. Just an incredible performance. Let's see. Eric and Raleigh says, good afternoon from the East Coast, 7 a.m. Hawaii time. Well, no, it's 6 a.m. Hawaii time. Let's lead with Rainbow Warriors football.
I don't think that Rainbow Warriors football is going to resonate with the fans here.
I mean, we contemplated it, but we have no idea if they still play football here.
Not real sure.
Teddy Wayman says, good morning, guys. Hope all y'all are enjoying your trip. Appreciate you, Teddy. Wayman Brothers Construction, a great partner on the show. By the way, you need any work done in your home, make sure you call our guys at Wayman Brothers Construction, 801-654-1028. They're working on a huge project for us right now that we should be able to talk about here in a couple of weeks. But when you're looking for a contractor in the great state of Utah, make sure that you call Wayman Brothers Construction, 801-654-1028. And the other thing that I'll say to you is...
we're signaling to Mrs. Monty to help us with the little camera action here.
Oh, okay.
Because the ocean's a little white right now.
It's fine. Anyway, the point is that Wayman Brothers Construction, the thing that I really like about them is you don't have to worry about your job. When you hire a contractor like Wayman Brothers, whether it's Alma or Josh or Teddy Wayman doing your tile, like, I'm telling you now, you can write that check and understand when you hand that check over to Alma Wayman that you're handing it to a guy who cares about your job as much as you do. And I think that's the one thing that really stands out. So, Teddy, good to see you. Call him today, 801-654-1028 for Wayman Brothers Construction. Let's see. Matt Turley says BYU might be the best team west of Texas. I don't know. There's that little USC team in Southern California who looked awfully good against Rice. Now it was Rice.
Yeah. And I think that's what people are saying. Like, hey, there's expectations of USC and Lincoln Riley and that whole situation. Obviously, there's a lot of expectations. But people are also saying, hey, it was Rice. Like, you should have dominated them. And so I think you got to use the same logic, man. It's week 1. Like, what would we be saying if USC had come out and dropped a dud? What would we be saying if USC somehow had lost the game, which never would have happened? But, if they just hadn't lived up to it, what would we be saying? Well, we would be saying, hey, well, Lincoln Riley's a failure. It's the worst move ever. Like, everyone would be hating on him. So that's why I say, yes, it was Rice, but yes, you came out and handled your business. So to the comment, I'm not comfortable or ready to say that BYU is the best team west of Texas. I think that BYU is a really strong team right now, and I think that BYU came out and did exactly what they need to do. I think teams like USC, teams that had a great week, obviously Alabama. This is the week of warm-ups, basically. This is the week where you, unless you're Utah, I guess, where you play a lot of soft teams to get it going. And I think that's just what it is right now.
Yep, no doubt about that. It's the Monty Show live on the Kona Coast in Hawaii this morning, talking BYU football. Nathan Sharp says, Matt Turley, USC would outright beat them anywhere. BYU is good, but there are at least 3 teams better west of Texas. I don't think anybody's beating BYU handily. I think BYU, and I think this is what we're seeing. Again, this is a lesson we learned last year, and I think one of the more impressive things that we saw in Tampa over the weekend, BYU has the talent now. Mm-hmm. There are 3 deep pretty much at every position. You look at the secondary, the linebackers, the wide receivers, the running backs, certainly. I think the way Jaron showed out this weekend was nothing short of spectacular. Like, I think that is, to me, one of the things that's really significant is that I think BYU can play with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that size up front is really what allows them to be successful, mostly on offense, but also on defense. Like, I think that offensive line, man, is just impressive. The offensive line has size. It's got athletic ability. Like, it does everything that you would want your offensive line to do. And I think for so long, we've talked about, the Nick Sabans and the Alabamas of the world. We've talked about, these major D1 college football playoff every year teams having awesome offensive lines. And now it's great to see BYU has something like that. I mean, you have an offensive line that last week was ranked 6th in the nation. I mean, that's no joke. That's Pro Football Focus saying, hey, you have the 6th best offensive line in the country. And I just think that BYU is again, that recruiting cycle, that pipeline that is now built. You're getting that influx of talent every single year, so you don't have the option or the ability to have an off year anymore.
Yeah, and I think when you look at exactly what this conversation's about is BYU a team that is, going to dominate all the time? They're not. They're going to have bad weeks. But BYU, in my opinion, and this is the conversation we had about going into the Big 12, this Baylor game next weekend is one that we've had circled on the calendar pretty much all summer, and we've been talking a lot about it for the last couple of weeks for the very reason that this is a statement game. This Baylor game is a statement game for BYU. It's a game that Jaron was not healthy for last year in Waco. It's a game that really was a crushing defeat for BYU last year. The game's at Provo. You're favored at home. You're coming off of a huge win against the South Florida Bulls. If you beat Baylor in this game, again, it's a chance to send a message. I would think, just looking at this early on, I would take BYU to win this game by 10. Mm-hmm. I think BYU will get a convincing win at home, and obviously as the week goes on, we'll talk about that. But this is another opportunity for BYU to show who they are as a football team, to send a message. Mm-hmm. To me, you cannot ever pass on those opportunities. Now, hey, maybe the Bears roll into Provo and it's all good in the hood. Mm-hmm. I doubt that. It's elevation. It's an ESPN game. It's a night game at Lavelle. Like, it's going to be lit. The Rock's going to be unbelievable. Mm-hmm. This is a huge opportunity for BYU to make a statement. I think you have to win this game against Baylor, and I think you have to win it convincingly.
Yeah, and I think that the conversation for BYU is consistent and it's weekly, which is it's not good enough just to win a ball game versus most teams. Against Notre Dame, it's good enough to win by 3, right? In Las Vegas for the trip that we're sending you on. But when you're at Lavelle and you're playing a team like Baylor, it's not good enough to win by just a field goal. You're going into the Big 12. Like, BYU understands that. BYU understands there's expectations, and I think that to what did you say they're favored right now? By 10, I think
3.
You said? Or by 3.
No, BYU is favored by 3 at home Saturday against Baylor.
I think that, being, you're essentially even because you get a couple points for being at home. Like, I think, I'd love to see a 10-point victory. I'd love to see them pull away at the end, but we'll get into it later in the week, but I do think you're correct. It's an opportunity to make yet another statement. And again, you've been on the bandwagon of this is a tough schedule. I'm saying that BYU handled their business this past week, and I would expect nothing less against teams like Baylor because, frankly, I think that we need to stop saying, hey, well, Baylor's this great team. We need to start saying that, hey, this team is, yes, obviously capable of beating BYU, but this is at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. This is a home game. This is everything you're looking for in the BYU football program. They should win that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also think that there's quite a bit of what's the right word? Credence.
Mm-hmm.
BYU has to prove a point twice as much as everybody else. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And by the way, I think this also plays into this situation with the Duke volleyball team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this story, and I don't know if you guys saw it or not over the weekend, but South Carolina canceled a home-and-home basketball series with BYU. South Carolina women's, the reigning national champions, canceled the home-and-home series with BYU over this situation with Duke that now it appears she either misheard or she didn't hear anything at all. I don't know.
Right.
But this story with the Duke volleyball player, I mean, that you're now starting to lose your self-business here.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, do you have a perception problem? This game, this home game for BYU against Baylor football on Saturday at Lavelle is massive from a behavioral standpoint. You have to behave. The Rock has to behave well here.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no other way to go about this. And I think this now, at every BYU athletic event, this now becomes a point of attention.
Mm-hmm.
How do the fans act? How's the Rock act? What's the language coming out of the Rock? What are the activities? Because when the Rock is lit and it's full, especially at football games, I mean, it's a difference maker. Home field advantage for BYU is not something a lot of people talk about. I think it flies under the radar. Lavelle Edwards Stadium, especially at night, when you whatever the color coordination is, or if you're striping, or it just doesn't matter. But when you look at what Lavelle Edwards Stadium represents, it's a huge home field advantage for BYU. But now the microscope is so trained on BYU fans based on this situation with Duke volleyball and how they acted and these accusations. And forget whether they're true or not. Forget whether she made them up or not. Perception is reality. And now you are going to fight the perception that you're a bunch of racists and that BYU doesn't treat their guests well, which is a huge problem because it's simply not true. But the perception is always reality. And, Jake, I think they have a perception problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, issuing statements after South Carolina, canceled the home and home, saying that you were extremely disappointed in South Carolina is, to me, it's an interesting strategy. I don't know that I would have said I'm extremely disappointed. I might have said something like, hey, we are disappointed in this decision, but, everyone has to make their own decision. We respect their decision. Yep. Whatever. I think I would have been a little bit more, a little nicer about it. But overall, I think, yeah, you're right. Perception has always been a reality for BYU. Take away all the incidents that have happened recently. If we just look in the big picture, BYU's always had a perception. I'm not going to say an issue, but there's always just been a perception about it because it is a religious institution. It is the honor code. It is the going on missions and those old white guys coming back to play football. Like, we've heard that for years, man. This isn't new. And I think now, because of of what happened, or I mean, I'm not saying it's fact or what didn't happen. Like, because of the alleged incident that happened at the volleyball game, and because of what happened with BYU TV, I just think that BYU is going through a time where they're dealing with some things, and it always helps to win football games. So if I'm the boys in that football program, if I'm Kalani, I feel a certain inherent responsibility to be the absolute best I can be right now to help the institution.
See, I agree with Josh Loverin. I think this is a really good point. And Josh is in Seattle, by the way. Perception of major sports in Utah outside of the state aren't high or good.
Here's where the conversation gets difficult.
It is. Absolutely. Here's where the conversation gets difficult. Because you're never getting away from the Duke volleyball incident now, which is terrible. As we talked about last week, I don't believe it ever happened. I think if that had happened, there would have been evidence. I think people would have come forward. I just don't believe it happened. I don't want to get into the conversation of, did she make it up? I don't know what she did. I don't know what was in this young lady's mind. What I'm telling you is, I don't believe that she was racially abused. I don't believe anybody was racially abused that night in Provo. The rest of the country does. And this plays into the stereotype we talk about that so often happens when it comes to BYU and the state of Utah, that we're a bunch of white racists who don't like minorities. Some of that is true. We have absolute equality issues. This situation at BYU is unjust. It's unfair. And now you're going to have to do everything you can possibly do to overcome it. And that's going to require the entire BYU and University of Utah families to come together and make sure that nothing like this ever happens again in this state. It can't happen. And it's really difficult to get your arms around, because you are never going to win the battle of public opinion.
Right.
Because no matter what happens with this Duke volleyball player, she is going to be believed by 9 out of 10 people just based on past experiences with fans.
In society
today? With fans in Utah. It's whether it's Russell Westbrook or any of the college situations.
Yes.
Like, now, if you are Duke volleyball, you're going to be believed more than BYU is going to be believed. And even though I thought Tom Holmoe came out and very strongly handled it, even though they came out and took the word of Duke and put a scarlet letter on this kid as a racist, even though there's no video evidence, even though there is no exculpatory evidence, even though there is nobody that's come forward, not a single person in the Rock or the fan section or administrators or law enforcement or anybody heard it, saw it, witnessed it, there's no video evidence. It happened. And you know why it happened? Because perception is always, bigger, larger, and more real than reality is.
Right.
And perception says this girl was racially abused. Whether you like it or not, that's the reality of it.
Well, and I think, this girl was racially abused at a white conservative religious institution. That's what the country narrative is, I feel like. Hey, like, it's not just that she was racially abused, as if that wasn't bad enough. It's that, hey, she was racially abused and in the state of Utah at BYU, which is from a national perspective, a white institution. And again, I don't think that there's much more that someone like Tom Holmoe can do. Like, I think you issued a statement, like you were very strong against it. Like, the respective coaching staffs have issued statements. I don't know what else you can do outside of, in my opinion, rolling out a program that allows you to be seen as proactively solving what the perception of a race issue might be at your school. Like, correct. I think that would be, to me, that's what I would be doing. I'd be saying, okay, reality or not, the fact is people think we have an issue with race at our school, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z to alleviate that perception. And every time moving forward that something happens, here's how we're going to handle it. And that's the other problem I feel like that doesn't get talked about. A lot of people are saying, hey, they mishandled the situation. There's a lot of, reporting about what exactly happened and the exact events of how things happened. That's the other problem here for BYU, and that's why I think, I might even go as far, if I felt so compelled, to put together a video montage of what exactly happened and the exact times. I mean, we've seen that. Hell, we've been, again, not to go down a political path, but that's what everybody did with the insurrection stuff. Hey, video, time, day. If I'm BYU, I might go down that path just to say, hey, this is what we did here. You can see it. And that's what I will continue to maintain. If you have video and people can see it and it's not in dispute, you're fine. If you don't have video and, hey, we don't have video of someone calling her the N-word, that's a problem, right? Because she's saying it happened, but you don't have any video evidence.
Well, and I also think that it is one of those things where you have to consistently show passionate, aggressive behavior that doesn't cross a line. And I think it just sucks. The whole thing sucks.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest about it. Because you're going to lose relationships with major universities like South Carolina, which would have been a great home and home. They're the reigning national champions. It's Dawn Staley. And now that's not going to happen. And my guess is you're probably not going to see Duke in town anytime soon. My guess is that you're going to lose some relationships down the road, and it didn't have to happen. So we'll see. Let's get some of your comments in here. Ruff's official is talking about suing people. Like, I mean, Ruff, what are you going to sue for? Like, Ruff's official says, I hope this fan sues the crap out of the player. Duke and BYU. There's nothing to sue for. There is nothing on any level like that. That to me is exactly the issue here.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna sue to perpetuate a situation and exacerbate this thing when you just need to act. The fan base needs to continue to represent BYU well.
Right.
That's the bottom line. I don't know. You're never going to get away from this volleyball thing, and it's quite tragic. Jerem Tracy says major media was quick to jump on BYU accusations, but have virtually ignored the latest details of the story, which is why the rest of the country thinks it's happened, as you said, Monty. Well, I think that's the reality of it. I mean,
right.
How many people are covering election fraud anymore? Well, we just had a Republican in Florida found guilty and sentenced over creating a fake candidate to siphon votes.
No.
But are we talking about voter fraud anymore? We're not. I mean, like, the perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
The perception is reality, whether you want it to be or not. The perception is in your life, in fast food, in social media, everywhere you go, anything you do, you have a perception of something, somebody, a car, a human, a burger, whatever it is. You have a perception of what energy drinks are. They're terrible for you. Well, perception's not reality, but it is because you perceive it that way.
Mm-hmm.
BYU will always be a racist institution. BYU will always racially abuse young black Duke volleyball players.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's not true. The Rock is one of the best student sections in the country, but now it's a racist student section.
Right.
That's the worst part of this. And the problem is, what did we see when this happened with the Duke volleyball player? We saw the tape of Russell Westbrook, and we heard about Russell Westbrook and how he was racially abused at a Jazz game, and it's just this thing that just keeps on going.
The beast that keeps rolling.
And that's why I say, if you're at a game, and I don't care if it's a Jazz, Utah, BYU, Weber, Aggie Tears, whatever it is,
right,
wherever you are, and you hear something like this, you have a responsibility to your fellow Utahns to act, because this is not who we are. And until we act in that manner, and until we do not tolerate this as Utahns, this is who we are. We have to proactively take steps to debunk that. And we have to loudly call that stuff out, because I'm telling you, that's not who we are. I know Utah. I love Utah. This is not who we are as a people. I think there's a certain sect of people who are that way, but that's in every state.
Facts.
That cannot define who we as a state are.
Totally
who we
agree.
as a populace are, who BYU is, who Utah is. It just
totally
can't.
Agree.
It's not right. M. Morris says Seattle is about to lose the Seahawks. No. Good luck getting the NFL to do that. DeCobber81 says justice is never served when it comes to race. Even if it didn't happen and the band fan sues and wins, the perception is already there. It will not change. Suing, the fan suing, how are you going to prove defamation? Because that's what you would be suing for, I assume.
I feel like culturally speaking in our country, we're very much in a place where we're just like, oh, something happened. Well, guess it's time to sue. Guess it's time to like jump into court and go after people, I guess. Like, remember who this guy is or this student is. Like, this is a UVU student, right? Like, this isn't Tony Busby we're talking about. This is a UVU student who allegedly was involved in Again, go and read about it. Like there's some evidence that says he isn't even in the area of the crime or the incident, whatever. I just think we can't be so quick to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to sue everybody and that's how this is going to work. That's just not. I feel like in our country that's where we are. I feel like every day there's a new story about how someone connived the system and sued somebody in some ridiculous fashion to get $1 million, and that's just not how you fix this problem, in my opinion.
Well, and DW2CB makes a good point. I forgot about the John Morant family situation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting into CRT. I see a ton of people, saying that, critical race theories, this or that. I'm not getting into it. Not on this show, not today. 8 minutes from now, we'll have Football at 50 brought to you by Papa Murphy's Pizza, so make sure you stick around for that. Tanner said, well, Homo had no choice, Jerem Tracy, because if he and BYU push back on these allegations, then it would have made their PR situation worse, far worse. It would have been like throwing gas on a fire, you know what I mean? You don't have a choice. Sir Robin said there have been podcasters, broadcasters have stepped up to our defense. So that's been Cook. Okay. That's cool. Ryan Buckley says, good morning, guys. Disappointed that Utah didn't get the win, but it's never over for Utah. Well, the Utah game was particularly disappointing because of why they lost. I don't believe that Utah got blown off the field. I don't believe, like I saw the BYU fans celebrating, talking about how Utah was outclassed. Utah was not outclassed.
Right.
Utah simply did not tackle. That's the difference in this game. Florida tackled Utah did not. Utah missed so many opportunities to bring Richardson down for sacks.
Yep.
Like Van Filliger alone probably could have had 3 to 5 sacks more.
Yeah.
You look at the run game tackling. How many times did Florida pick up an extra 2-3 yards because a tackle wasn't finished? Pick up a first down because a tackle wasn't finished.
Yeah.
Like, repeatedly.
Yes.
Repeatedly, Florida converting, Utah not. And then, Cam Rising throwing that interception, boy, that's tough. You're in a situation where you're driving to win the game on the road in Gainesville, and you simply threw it where I think there were all 11 Florida Gators were just chilling in one spot in the end zone, and he threw it right to him.
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
Like, that was one of the most frustrating moments I've had as a Utah football observer in some time.
Yeah, because you could see the magic happening. You could see that Cam was taking him down the field. Like, everything was great. You could kind of see the drive coming together. And you're like, okay, they're going to have a shot at this thing. They're going to have, this opportunity to have this great win. And I think that throwing an interception in that moment, again, the word is heartbreaking. I think that's the absolute correct word to use. And I think that Cam is still a great quarterback. He made a mistake. He turned the ball over. That's going to happen. But I think that this was a big-time learning lesson. And again, I'm going to keep bringing this up because I think Utah dealt with it a lot. You struggled with tackling. Well, why do you think that is? Well, you didn't really hit a lot in preseason, right? Or in camp, I guess, as they say in college football.
Right.
You didn't really do a lot of hitting. You didn't really do a lot of, in my opinion, full contact tackling practice, form technique tackling practice. You didn't do a lot of that. And then you combine that with the fact that they were clearly gassed in the fourth quarter. That team was struggling with
major cramping issues.
Cramping, like physically was just struggling. And so that's why I say, again, with all due respect to Utah, BYU did better on this trip with conditioning and sports science and feeding their bodies and like being prepared in that way for this trip. And I think that it will be interesting to see how Utah adjusts to that, because you can't have on the road week one in what in my opinion was a college football playoff implication game. You can't have your guys struggling physically to play the game.
Well, and I just go back to what Witt said. When you have an opportunity to make a statement in games like this, you got to make that statement. Well, you didn't. And I think the hard part now is you've got a 2-week run-up.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not the hard part. Maybe this is a good part. I don't know. Most football players I know, when they play poorly or lose a game, they want to play right away. Well, you've got 2 weeks to San Diego State in what I think is a massive football game. Now, San Diego State didn't exactly look great. They ran into, by the way, would like to say I told you so again, ran into a really good Arizona football team.
I really don't care if you think it's sus.
Yeah, told you.
Yeah.
by the way, Tanner Plummer calling me out for being arrogant and self-aggrandizing on
next
Twitter.
question.
That was probably smart. Anyway, but the point is, Arizona is really good. Arizona is, and I shouldn't say really good. Arizona is vastly improved. Arizona is going to win a lot of games. They're probably going to be bowl eligible this year. I think what's really interesting is Utah's now got to go out and pound San Diego State.
Yes.
You've got to go out 2 weeks.
It matters.
And light them up and have zero mercy for San Diego State at Rice-Eccles in a couple of weeks, because now everything's got to be bigger and better. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think, and one of the questions we're gonna talk about here at Football 50 is who's going to have the better season, BYU or Utah? Mm-hmm. Because BYU's off to this great flying start. Utah came out with a thud, but I wouldn't write Utah off yet. I mean, obviously what we saw last year, but they ran the football well.
Right.
There is no doubt about that. Tavion Thomas can run the football for this team. The offensive line was pretty good. I thought the offensive line played well. Mm-hmm. And this might be the first time we ever say this on the show. Cam Rising could have been a heck of a lot better than he was.
Yeah, and that's why I say I really feel like, Utah was just not their best. Like, I felt like Utah wasn't tackling. Utah, like Devon Bailey had a nice little game, but I didn't feel like they executed offensively speaking very well. Like, there were things you could have done better. Like, I'm not going to sit here and get on this Anthony Richardson is the best thing I've ever seen train, because that's what I feel like happened on Twitter. Everyone was like, oh, well, Anthony Richardson did this and Anthony Richardson did that. No, what happened is Utah didn't tackle. Utah missed him in the backfield. It must have been 7 or 8 times where he breaks a tackle and runs for another 10, 15 yards. And you can't have that against guys like Anthony Richardson. That can't happen, man. And we specifically talked about that. And so I'm watching this game, or we're watching this game, and I'm just frustrated. I'm like, dude, like, where did this Kyle Whittingham, we have the best defense ever conversation go? Because that's what you needed to win that game, and you didn't have that. And that's why I'm telling you, like, as much as I like what Cam Rising can do in his game and his leadership and the fact that I didn't really feel like he was rattled at all in this game. Yes, he makes the mistake at the end, but just overall, I felt like he was really composed, had his stuff together, was in a great place. Like, he performed fine. The defense is what lost them the game. That is the problem, because you get the takeaway early.
Listen to what you just said about Utah.
The defense lost you the game. It wasn't that Cam Rising threw that interception. Yes, if they score a touchdown there, you still win the game. Okay, cool. You can make that argument. But what I'm telling you is, in the big picture, you wouldn't have been in that position if you would have tackled the whole game or just tackled half the game, and you would have executed defensively. You would not have been in that situation. So that's why I say, don't talk to me about Cam Rising throwing interceptions at the end. Don't talk to me about cramps. Like, at the end of the day, this came down to you did not tackle, and they did, and they out-executed you. And unfortunately, that means you're 0-1, and now you have that's what you're going to deal with.
Yeah. All right. 10 to the hour, every hour, Football 50, presented by Papa Murphy's Pizza. Use promo code Monty25 for 25% off your order of $25 or more at order.papamurphys.com. And I think when you look at the lead on Football 50 today, it is very telling that you were hesitant to say BYU or Utah's defense cost them this win. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I agree with that. They did not tackle well. I thought underutilizing Dalton Kincaid. I thought overutilizing Brant Keithy as a wide receiver, because the other guy we talked a lot about leading up to this game was Devon Bailey. I was a little disappointed. I think he only had 3 catches. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted more out of the passing game. And I think you got exactly what you needed out of Tavion, and I think you didn't get exactly what you need out of Devon Bailey. I think the passing game is where I would go here. You need more out of the passing game. You absolutely need more out of the passing game. I just think when you look at Devon Bailey and you look at what you did not get, man, I think that's a problem.
Yeah, and I think that, we've had this conversation about Utah needing to replace Britton Covey and his production, and where is that going to come from? Yeah, it's obviously front and center, but again, I guess the reason I think it's the defense is because you were doing enough offensively, like you were able to move the ball. It wasn't like the offense was struggling that much. Yeah, would it have been nice if Vele had a bigger game? Yeah, I mean that definitely would have been nice. It would have been nice to have an over the top threat. It would have been nice to have that, absolutely. But I still maintain with this program, what do we know? We know that Kyle Whittingham is a defensive-minded coach. We know that the defense is what stirs the drink here. Whatever we get from the offense, awesome, but our defense is what's going to hold, is what essentially is going to put us in position to win ball games. And so that's why I say, I was just like, damn, man, like how many of these tackles are they going to miss? How many times are you going to have, are you going to have first contact 1 yard past the line of scrimmage and then their back gets 5 more yards? How many times is Anthony Richardson going to get those extra 4 to 5 yards? Like that was the struggle I felt like. And so I don't disagree that the offense needs some work and they're still working on replacing Covey, but I think that this whole tackling thing, I don't think it's going to be a constant problem. I don't think that this is something that's going to persist, but they got to get it right. And I'm curious if we'll see some adjustments, next week.
Well, other way. I think Mrs. Monty's trying to adjust the contrast on the camera right now during Football 50 to, presented by Papa Murphy's Pizza. And I think one of the interesting stats is that you have a situation with Cam Rising where he completed a high number of passes. 22 of 32 is not a terrible number. But when I look at Cam, and I see that Cam Rising's a guy, and again, I just am going on individual stats. Cam Rising's a guy who's 22 of 32, 216 for a touchdown and a pick. Tavion Thomas, 23 for 115 yards. That's 5 yards a carry. You got to get more out of the passing game. And I think when you look at this situation with Brant Keithy, 9 catches for 105 yards. That's a big deal. Devon Vele, 3 for 36. I think you need more out of Devon Vele. I think when you look at, Micah Bernard with 5 for 31, I think when you look at Dalton Kincaid, 2 for 29 receptions. And now Jake is over there and he just darkened our face up completely. He's trying, he's trying anyway. But the point is that when you look at these guys, and you see that there's just no balance in the Utah offense. That's what I would say. There's just not a lot of balance in that offense at all. And I think it's one of those deals where, Jake, you just,
We're working.
Well, you got to turn your mic back up.
Yeah, we're working on it. Sorry, it's our first time out here. We're working on it.
Yeah. Tap the LCD screen to get us in focus. There you go.
There we go.
I think it's one of those situations where you have to, that's good. You have to figure out, I think, how to get more balance in the offense, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that overutilizing Keithy is not going to work. I mean, you have to find a better solution, but again, that's where the Britton Covey piece comes in. I mean, you had a guy in Covey who operated out of the slot a ton and gave you that sort of that X factor where you could use Keithy as a distraction, and he could, not that he was taking a ton of plays off, but you get that opportunity where you can get to the top of your route and you get that half step where you can take that off and get that touch of rest, so then that next play you can go out and blow your defender up. Like, I think those things within games really matter when you think about, hey, we're going to Florida on the road and we know it's the swamp. We know that it's going to be super humid. We know that we're going to be fighting it physically a little bit. Like that's why having Vele is so important. And I think that we shouldn't just expect this guy to come out and be amazing. I would expect him to get better as the season goes on.
I'm telling you now, you had better have a wide receiver that can do the job. You better have a wide receiver who can be a true number one that can step up and do what you need to be done. Because I think when you look at Vele, I love Devon Vele. I just think that the situation becomes very clear to me that Devon Vele has to step up and he has to be better. And I think that he has to be a guy that you target heavily, not a little bit, a lot. you've got to target Devon Vele as best you can, because I just don't see any way, shape, or form that this offense is going to thrive unless Devon Vele thrives. Because you got to have a guy in this league. I think we learned this about Oregon. If you don't have a guy that can take the top off of defense, you can just go sit on the sideline. Because at some point you're going to be in 3rd and long. The defenses in the Pac-12 are too quality to not have an answer in 3rd and long. And in my opinion, it is absolutely positively not Brant Keithy on 3rd and long.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful weapon, but I cannot believe that you can't find more room in this offense for Devon Vele. I just can't believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, I think overall, like I said, Utah has to execute better. Utah just has to come together as a team and do better. Like I know that like that's a very simple and like, you know, armchair couch coaching take, but I think that's what it
Not
is.
at all.
I think we know what this team's capable of. We know that Cam Rising, it's unusual for him to turn the football over there. We know that they were battling, and that's why I say I'm not frustrated with the Utah thing because they lost necessarily. What I'm frustrated with is that you weren't able to perform at your best level with the circumstances and what you were dealing with physically.
Yes.
And I really feel like that held them back, because I have no doubt about it. Utah is a better football team than Florida. And in my opinion, Utah lost that game. I don't think that Florida won that game. And that's what I'm frustrated about.
Football 50% by Papa Murphy's Pizza. Make sure you get to orders.papamurphys.com. That's how you order Papa Murphy's Pizza online. Download their app. They have a super easy-to-use app that we use all the time. And again, if you're a Papa Murphy's guy, here's what I'd tell you. Order it ahead of time. Like if you want Papa Murphy's on your smoker tonight, because we all know there's no better way to make pizza than to smoke it.
Obviously.
Order it in the app right now, on your lunch break, whenever you're off. Pick it up on your way home. They'll have it sitting on a rack, ready, freshly wrapped for you. Drop it on the smoker on your way home. It's an amazing, amazing dinner. And I'm telling you, trust me on this, you gotta try the chocolate chip cookies at Papa Murphy's, because they are creme de la creme, baby.
Yes.
What is it the guy does? He drops the little salt.
Yes. Salt Bay. Salt Bay.
There you go. I'm telling you right now, get the Papa Murphy's pizza. I am a mozzarella, onion mix, green onion, mushroom with cheese, but you got to get the barbecue sauce. Next time you order a Papa Murphy's pizza, use the code Monty25, get 25% off your purchase. Use that code to buy yourself some barbecue sauce, because I think barbecue sauce on a pizza is amazing. Everybody says it looks much better now that you turn the lights up.
Yeah, I'm working on it. We're this whole light behind us trying to light this is definitely a challenge. But I turn the lights up. We're working on it. So
all right,
I appreciate that.
It is 11 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. Lopes fan Gabe gives us a $20 tip to say happy birthday, Mrs. Monty.
Let's go.
Indeed, it is Mrs. Monty's birthday today. She is 67 years old. I should say years young. The wrinkles are setting in, the skin is sagging, but we all still love her.
Right.
So happy birthday to Mrs. Monty. Gabe, appreciate you pointing that out. A lot of football talk on the show today, obviously reacting to BYU and Utah right here on the Monty Show, presented by the Utah Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. The Advocates are your presenting sponsor of the Monty Show. Check them out online, UtahAdvocates.com. And listen, if you've been injured, if you've been in a wreck, if you've been in a car accident, a motorcycle accident, if you've had injuries that are not your own doing, I would tell you, get with the Advocates right now. There is no reason for you to be struggling through this process, because when you're injured and you need a lawyer, you've got to have an advocate. And what that means, what is an advocate? An advocate is somebody that fights for you, that you can count on to be in your corner when you need them most. They're going to do that by, hey, you don't have to pay them anything up front. Their consultations are free at the Advocates. There is never an upfront cost, out-of-pocket cost to you. You don't pay until the Advocates win your case. It is zero risk. And the thing I really like is when you've been in an accident, obviously you're in a really difficult time, and maybe you don't feel like talking on the phone. Maybe you don't feel like, hey, do I know these people? Well, maybe you don't. But what you can do is get on their website, and you can actually chat with an attorney on their website, utahadvocates.com. Go check it out. The Advocates are your advocates. The best injury attorneys, the Advocates, utahadvocates.com. BYU gets a big win in South Florida. Utah gets a bad loss in Northern Florida. In Gainesville, they lose to Florida. So if I asked you, Jake, who's going to have a better season, BYU or Utah?
I would still go with Utah. I think that Utah is going to show this ability to bounce back. I think that Utah is really in a place where, they obviously had a long trip home, and they're going to think about this one, and they're going to be motivated by it. And I think that it's not lost on anybody, Ute fans or program-wise, it's not lost on anyone that, hey, this is still a team that can get to the college football playoff. But frankly, you're going to have to go, no losses the rest of the way, frankly. And I think that's a big ask, and that would be a huge accomplishment. But again, I can't put it past this program after what you did last year. I can't put it past this coaching staff after what you've done the last several years. And I think that's why I say when we look at, hey, who's going to have the better season? Well, if the goal is to be in the college football playoff, I got to go with Utah. Frankly, I just have to. I think, I need to see BYU against, the Notre Dames and the Baylors and the Arkansas. I need to see, can you play man coverage, single high safety across the board and send more? Like, can you do that? Can Jaron Hall not take another big hit, which he continues to like to do in football games, which I will never understand? Like I want to see.
Yeah, there were a couple
nerdy ones.
We were watching the game and we were like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
get up.
mean, it just was like, dude, please get up. And I don't want, Jaron to go out in week 5 again or whatever it was last year. Like, I want and frankly need Jaron Hall to be healthy the whole year. So who has the better year? I think it's Utah.
I think it's probably Utah as well if I had to go right now. But this next month is going to define that, obviously. But when you look at the Pac-12, this is, I think, something else that is really important. You look at the Pac-12, that Oregon loss at Georgia, my God.
Yes.
My God.
Embarrassing.
Oregon did not belong on the field with the Georgia Bulldogs. They were never in that game. They never gave you the feeling, Georgia never gave you the feeling that they were going to compete or win that game. Never,
no.
Not on a single play. They were not competing in any phase of the game, defense, offense, special teams. Georgia was despicable. Yeah, Georgia was the superior team. And I don't think this matters in the grand scheme of things when it comes to, hey, is Oregon joining the Big Ten? I don't think that's part of this discussion. But if they keep having games like this and if Oregon keeps going through the season and they keep looking foolish, I think there's a chance that this becomes a problem now. And this is, well, with all due respect, is correct. But this is about the worst time for Oregon and Utah to drop big games, national TV games.
Yes.
This is not helping the Pac-12.
Well, when you look at the opportunity they had, I mean, you compare the opportunity to what you put out, and now you're like, hey, we look like idiots. We look like obviously Oregon more than Utah, of course, but either way, the narrative is, hey, the Pac-12 had a rough weekend. Your best teams both lost to the SEC, and I think that's what you can't have. And so to me, if I'm being honest, that's what I was thinking about watching the Oregon game while we waited for 15 lightning strikes to delay BYU. I'm sitting here like, dude, Bo Nix is not that guy. Oregon is not that program this year, and that's why I say, yeah, last year, Oregon, you went on the road to the shoe and you beat Ohio State. Neat. That's last year. Nobody cares about that anymore. You just got shellacked by Georgia.
And I think, if you look at Utah State just getting purely dominated by Alabama, does it matter? Not really.
But I think it's really important. Why doesn't that matter, though? This is important.
Because I think Phil Knight isn't the one outselling Utah State. He's the one outselling Oregon. And I think when you look at Oregon, they expected to win that game. I think maybe expected to win that game is strong. I mean, that's the reigning national champions that you're talking about at Georgia. But you expected to compete. You did not expect to go out and get humbled and embarrassed. As a Duck fan, I just don't think you could have seen that coming. You know what? I think it's one of these things where you look at what happened with Oregon, the timing couldn't be worse. You look at, one of the guys we probably should talk about more is Devin Lloyd, because, Mahmoud Delabate didn't exactly impress. He's not somebody that I'm not blaming Diabate for the loss, but I think when you look at the middle of that Utah defense, you have some questions to answer there. I think Utah and Oregon losing in that fashion doesn't help. And by the way, USC coming out and absolutely throttling Rice doesn't help Utah because you look at what's coming up the weekend of October 8th in Salt Lake City when it's USC and Utah. That's a must-win game for Utah. And today I don't feel so good about that game.
Yeah, I think if you're Utah, you're saying, hey, we need to be ready for USC.
Yeah.
Like, would anyone? And again, credit where credit's due. You've been saying USC would be a problem, and I know it's only week 1. It's Rice. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But if USC comes out and rolls again, then don't you have to throw them right into the mix of college football playoff? Like, we're right back in this thing. Like, you have to do that because it is USC, because it is Lincoln Riley. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year we were talking about yet another average, NFL prospect and a USC quarterback winning the Heisman. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. And so that's why I say, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but also let's not be surprised because, again, USC has that brand power. And if you're the Big Ten, like if you're the commissioner of the Big Ten, if you're that conference, and you know that you've got this $7 billion rights deal with the ability to escalate it to $10 billion if you were to bring schools like Oregon and Washington, how much does this schlacking matter to you? Like, do you care? Or is it more of a TV, media rights, numbers game? That's what I'm really curious about. Like, how much does that loss affect decision-making? My feeling is it probably doesn't affect it too much, but it certainly doesn't help. It would have been nice if the Big Ten could have said, yeah, hey, look, that crown jewel of a Nike school in Oregon just went out and lost by 1 field goal at Georgia. That would have been cool to be able to say that, but unfortunately we don't get to do that.
Yeah, and I think you look at USC putting up 66 points on Rice, and you quickly realize that, Lee, Gentry, Bullock, Williams, just absolutely dominated for that defense. And you look at Caleb Williams running 6 times for 68 yards, throwing for 249 and 2 scores,
Yes.
taking the rest of the game off. That's everything you wanted. If you're Lincoln Riley, if you're a Trojan, fight on, brother, because you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling pretty good this morning about that.
Yes.
And the thing I would say is that you should go to Barbecue Pit Stop in Utah, any of their 5 locations,
Brother.
including Layton, Lehigh, Logan, St. George, and, of course, our good friends at Salt Lake City and Murray. We have this last week for you to get into their stores, enter to win our trip to see BYU and Notre Dame. By the way, Irish up.
Bless up.
Anything you want to say about Notre Dame after making a jackass of yourself the other day on the show, saying that Notre Dame was going to get lost by 89 points? I believe you predicted 106-41 would be the final score. That the Buckeyes would score 100. And what I have to say to you is suck it.
Hey, listen.
Go
I was
Irish.
partially right. Brian Kelly lost this weekend. Did I not say that Brian Kelly would lose?
You did. What an idiot, by the way. No,
come on, guys.
You're not going to distract me.
What?
Notre Dame showed out. They showed. What did I tell you? That defense is full of NFL prospects, right?
Yes, you
I
did
told
say
you.
that. You
I
said that.
I'm smarter than you.
Right.
I'm better looking.
Right.
My woman is hotter than your woman.
Right.
Like all the things.
Unreal.
Yeah, all the things we know are true. And Notre Dame is going to compete. And they damn near. Well, no, this is a lie. They damn near beat Ohio State.
Y'all feel me?
But that game played out just the way I told you it would. Notre Dame was in it late. Ohio State decided to be Ohio State. They stuck that Buckeye where the sun don't shine, and they pulled away. Notre Dame acquitted themselves quite well. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ronaya be damned. By the way, oh my God,
Okay.
did you see the meme? The meme of Ronaya's head on a Utah football player? And the caption was, when you get catfished into believing that Utah is a top 10 team.
Boo.
And it's Ronaya's head on Utah.
Bro. They need to chill out with that, bro.
Cold-blooded.
Dude.
And then, of course, the cherry on top of the sundae.
The Sunday.
The dessert for your prime fillet.
Right.
The 6-foot blonde to kiss you goodnight.
Right.
Was Brian Kelly losing on a blocked extra point. What a dick. Yeah, how about Brian Kelly and his made-up Southern accent getting throttled by Florida State, only to right the ship cause a turnover on the goal line by Florida State, march 99 yards down the field, score the touchdown, you're down 1 point. Well, we're going to kick the extra point. Well, you tried, and then Florida State blocked it to win the game. Suck it, Brian Kelly.
Happen.
There are few coaches on this earth who I wish to never lose a game.
There you go.
Brian Kelly's not one of them. I hope he loses every game that he ever coaches.
Yes.
I cannot wait to see him get railroaded out of being Ed Ogeron's replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look forward to that. Having said all that, make sure you get to our good friends at the Barbecue Pit Stop, bbqpitstop.com. Chris Karn, our good friend Chris Karn, went in. Apparently, they no longer have the Italian seasoning in the stores.
What?
Jake and I, Chris Karn was texting me the other day, our good friend Arlington Bears, and he was saying, well, they don't have the Italian Chop House seasoning in store. They say they only sell it at Walmart. Well, let's get a couple of things straight. When I'm not in Hawaii, because I actually was at Walmart yesterday, when I'm not in Hawaii, I never shop at Walmart. I just don't. It's not something I'm due.
Our reliance on the internet is incredible.
We'll talk about that later. I did not and was not aware that Walmart even had Kinder seasoning. Apparently they do. If you can get your hands on the Kinder's taco seasoning, any in the Kinder line that really Barbecue Pit Stop sells, and if not Kinder, they have every seasoning under the sun.
Yeah.
Make sure you check them out online. Every rub, spice, sauce that you need, get into their stores. It's in stock. You want it, they got it, absolutely. And they have every one of the best smoker and grill that you can imagine, whether that's a Yoder, a Traeger, a Big Green Egg. By the way, 2 of our listeners now have won Traeger smokers, their weekly giveaway.
Yes.
Get into Barbecue Pit Stop. Look for our beautiful faces. Well, my beautiful face and Jake's also ran face.
That's right, T.
On the counter on the Enter to Win box. For the BYU drive-away to see BYU and Notre Dame in the Shamrock Series in Las Vegas. It is all presented by Barbecue Pit Stop and our guy, Devery Davis. Good old Devery Davis, our good friend. I'm telling you, man, the mortgage industry is crazy right now. You need a friend in the mortgage business. It's Devery Davis.
You're listening to The Monty Show, my favorite peeps. I'm Devery Davis with the Davis Lending Team, powered by Academy Mortgage. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know what you're doing, you bought multiple homes, second homes, investment properties, multifamily, we've got you covered. Our office consists of everybody it takes to do your loan, from processing to underwriting to doc departments. We do it all right here. We're not waiting on Tucumcari or Walla Walla, Washington to answer an email. We take care of it here. The housing market's changed. Prices are dropping. It's the greatest time to buy a house. There's no such thing as a dumb question. If you have any questions, you give me a shout. I'll walk you through it. Have a great day. Tell my money guys I said what's up.
Yo, what's up,
Devery?
Devery, good to see you, my friend. Devery Davis. At the Davis Lending Team, 801-543-9666, NMLS number 278545. Devery Davis is an equal housing lender. All right, let's get to your comments. Rod Smith gives us a $10 tip to say, where was the vaunted BYU secondary? Probably not as good as they wanted to be.
Well, and I don't know what you're referencing. I don't know if that's you're saying that we said they were vaunted. We didn't say they were vaunted. We were specifically talking about last week how they can't be playing, drop 8, rush 3. I mean, you can't do that. And we specifically had those conversations. And I think that, again, I think that BYU executed mentally. You physically you were fine. I think that the defense, to your point, there's still some questions. We still need to see hey, I can play man across the board and not worry about giving up an 80-yard game breaker. We need to see that out of BYU, absolutely. But I think you should feel good about yourself today if you're a BYU fan.
But wait, what do you mean, where was the vaunted secondary? Well, the vaunted secondary was chasing Max Tooley down the field when he had his pick 6.
Yeah.
So I would say that's where the vaunted BYU secondary was. This was a great performance. You feel great about this game if you're BYU. You're going to watch a lot of film. Would you like to have seen, more interceptions? Would you like to have seen a better performance? Sure, you would like not to give up 21 points. It's a college football game. You're going to give up 21 points. But I think when I look at the numbers coming out of this game, and I look at Jerry Bohannon scoring or going 17 of 30, barely 50%, 172 yards, a QBR of 7.2. I'm going to say the secondary handled their business.
With all due respect.
Yeah, with all due respect. That you only gave up 279 yards. I'm going to say that the secondary handled their business. That your leading rusher had 39 yards and averaged 3.9 yards a carry.
Yes.
I'm going to say you handled your business. That your leading receiver, and now granted, 5 catches, 113 yards, but did you give up a receiving touchdown? You didn't. I'm going to say the secondary handled their business. I don't think you have a whole lot to complain about with BYU.
I'm going to say this again.
I really don't. Tanner Plummer says they're going to do a live stream at halftime of the BYU-Oregon game. Okay. M. Alvarez says, are you guys going to do a draw on a live stream? I don't know that we'll live stream that draw at Barbecue Pit Stop. We're giving the trip away at the Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh. We're going to talk a lot more about that event next week, but we're going to have Papa Murphy's Pizza. We're going to have wings there. We're going to have smokers fired up. We're going to do our Football Saturday show there. And then we're going to watch BYU and Oregon. And then at the halftime of BYU and Oregon, we're going to give away that. We're going to pull the winner. And hopefully Steve from Barbecue Pit Stop will be able to join us on that one.
Yes.
And he'll actually pull the winner out of the hat to see who wins that trip to see BYU and Oregon. BYU and Notre Dame at the Shamrock Series of the halftime of BYU and Oregon. So we'll see. By the way, don't you feel a lot better about BYU and Oregon after the Georgia game?
Well, I mean, don't you have to? Like, and this is kind of what I'm struggling with today. I'm wondering, how should I feel about teams like Utah? How should I feel about teams like Oregon? Should I like with Oregon specifically? I don't feel great that they're going to bounce back. Like, I know that sounds kind of crazy. Like, you just got your ass kicked in Georgia, and you're sitting here like, wow, like, how do we even come back from that? Like, how do we? I mean, that wasn't just a clinical, like, they were better than you type performance.
They got dominated.
Like, Bo Nix, like, not impressed. Not impressed. Like, thought
Bo Nix was
better.
very Auburn Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Like, he was not impressive at all. Their defense, there were a lot of snaps. Their defense just didn't compete.
Yeah.
I mean, plain and simply put, their defense didn't compete at Oregon, which is shocking. And maybe Mario Cristobal is a better coach than we were giving him credit for. I don't know, because they were terrible.
Yeah.
Like, they were really, really bad.
Really disappointing.
Mac Myson, since we're on the topic of food, just thought I'd drop in with some facts that Whataburger is better than In-N-Out.
Who the fuck are you?
Okay, that's a fact.
I'm going to give you another chance.
No, you're not.
I'm going to give you another chance to come into the comments section and correct what you just said, because I know you didn't just say that Whataburger's better than anything, because it's not.
It is. Whataburger.
No, it's not. It's not.
How many Whataburgers have you had?
Like 10.
No, you've had one.
Well,
You've only had one. How many
I
times
don't-
have you eaten there, do you think?
probably twice. Maybe.
How many times have you eaten at In-N-Out?
Plenty of times.
100?
Probably. In my life, yeah, probably.
I've had more Whataburger than you, and I'm telling you, the bun at Whataburger is better. The meat is
No,
better.
no.
The shape of the patty's better,
No.
and the French fries are certainly better.
Congratulations, but that's bullshit.
All of that to say that I'm telling you, In-N-Out Burger is one of the most overrated brands in the history of really crappy fast food.
Okay.
Okay, I feel better now.
Yeah, good.
I feel better now. I do. Apparently, Tanner Plummer is setting policy on the show. Tanner said they're going to do a live stream at halftime of the BYU-Oregon game, M. Alvarez. That's when they're going to draw the winner. So we're doing a live stream now. Did you and Tanner talk about something I was unaware of?
No, we did not.
Okay.
We did not at all. Actually.
Executive producer Tanner Plummer.
I don't have much to say.
Matt Turley said, I think Arkansas is going to be the hardest game for BYU this season. They look good week one against a solid team. Yeah, I agree. Arkansas did look good.
Yeah.
And I think Arkansas, maybe I'm not the only one sounding the Arkansas alarm anymore. That team, I mean, you watch that team last year, that's a team that competes every single snap.
Yes.
They want to blow your head off every snap, and I think they absolutely
and
showed
I'm glad.
that.
Frankly, I'm glad that BYU is going to see the SEC again. I think that's really important, and they've been, Tom Homo obviously has been, I'm sure, working hard to get a quality schedule built for the football program. And look, I just think that there's a lot to play for this year, and I know that we talk a lot of BYU on this show, and I don't want to come off as someone who certainly is a BYU fan, because I'm not, but I just am going to keep saying it. You couldn't have asked for a better start. Jaren's healthy leaving that game. Most of the team is healthy leaving that game, outside of Puka, obviously, and I think that you're just in a good spot. Like, you're in the spot that you really would like to be after week one, and I was expecting, obviously, Utah to do better and for Utah to kind of be in a similar position. Unfortunately, they're not there. That said, adversity is what is the saying? Adversity is opportunity being born, or whatever the great corny saying is. So, hopefully they can bounce back. But I just think that BYU executed. BYU handled their business, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, especially with everything they had to deal with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's one of those things that you can't undervalue that. Matt gives us a $2 tip to say people forget Tim DeRuyter left for Texas Tech. Yeah, I mean, he was the defensive coordinator at Oregon, and that Oregon defense is not the same. I mean, I obviously, when you lose a guy like Mario at Mario Cristobal at Oregon, you're going to have wholesale changes on that staff, and that very clearly happened. Tim DeRuyter is a guy that was a lot of people believed he was the glue guy for a lot of those players at Oregon, and I think you're seeing that. This is not your same old Oregon Ducks team. This team, and they're talented. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Oregon's always going to have talent. They're always going to have athletes, but I think this is one of those situations where you're really going to have to figure out, who your leaders are. Like it is. Yeah. I think that's a big question. Tachini Man says you have to try Blake's Lotta Burger with Hatch green chilies if you're brave.
I saw it.
Okay. Hatch green chilies is a Mrs. Monty specialty. Like that's a Mrs. Monty thing for sure. Rod Smith says running game was not impressive in the last 2 quarters. Rod Smith, who are you talking about? BYU? Matt Morris says it's a good idea. DW2CB says Tanner Plummer on the payroll. I think so.
Look. I mean, do you want me to just kind of retire and go snorkeling? Because I could do that. If you
look
want
at you all of a
Tanner,
sudden turning into a fish here at 23 past the hour. 11:23 Mountain Time, and all of a sudden you're telling me now, what are you, some bluefin tuna?
Yeah, I'm a tuna. You know what I mean?
A harpoon face?
Yeah.
I'm for real.
I'm sorry, did you say harpoon face?
Yeah. Like what's the fish with the big old, not a swordfish, but
a swordfish.
Yeah,
I have a sword.
A sailfish, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is
harpoons and stuff.
Yeah, that's what they said about me. My point is.
Yeah.
My point is, what are you all of a sudden like a fish guy?
Yeah,
you got out in Kealakekua Bay.
Yeah, it's funny when you don't snorkel for a while and then you snorkel that first time. You just got to get the rust out first.
But you also have a big fear of the ocean, right?
Yeah, the ocean is definitely. I'm more of a stay on land kind of guy, but snorkeling's not bad. There's a big, obviously the ocean's behind us. Why not, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The Monty Show presented by the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. Chris P. says, I bet Oregon wishes they would have upped the offer for Kalani. I think it would have taken a earth-moving vehicle-type machine to get Kalani out of program. I don't think he wanted to. Tanner says, LOL, yep, I'm the executive producer. Alex Chacon says, any Jazz Talk today? No, but Jazz Talk tomorrow on the program.
Yes, sir.
Generally, Mondays during the football season are going to be very heavy NFL days. Very heavy NFL days.
NFL and college football reaction, and there's a lot to talk about.
I meant to say very heavy college football days and NFL news as well. So Alex, appreciate you asking about the Jazz. By the way, did you hear the Jazz traded Donovan Mitchell?
Do you guys know who Donovan Mitchell is? I don't. I'm not sure that I've heard of him.
How about I can't remember who was like, you guys didn't even go live. The Utah media sucks.
Garci,
that's right.
Garci.
Good to see you, Garci. PD says, Rod, you have the game one. You play second and third stringers to avoid injury. I agree with that.
Yep.
Let's see. Boyd Lake. Now, Boyd Lake is a respected, valued member of the family. I
swear to God, Boyd, you come in here talking about...
Whataburger dominates in and out. Can't compete with the sweet buns.
Come on, guy.
Now, first of all, Boyd, I cannot tell you how many of the lady persuasions have said they can't compete with my sweet buns.
Donnie, please.
I would agree the bun at Whataburger makes it. That the fry sauce is better at Whataburger.
Yesterday, quick story because we're talking burgers. We had to make a Walmart run. And on Hawaii, for those of you who've never been here, it's like a half hour to get to Walmart. On
Kona.
Yeah, on Kona.
Specifically Kona, you have to have a Harrier jet or a transport helicopter to get anywhere quickly.
So on the way to Walmart, there's a Jack in the Box. Now, we didn't go to the Jack in the Box. We made a business decision not to go to the Jack in the Box.
No. Don't say we made a business decision. You, sir.
Come on, man.
Sir. made a business decision.
How did I make a business decision?
Because you're the one who said, no, we're not doing it. I'm the one who said, I'm fat, I need tacos. You said, well, you are fat, and that's why we're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what happened.
Let's go, Schlep Rock.
Okay, so the internet here is not great.
Right.
So we needed an internet cable. We knew that. So we were at a wedding. The wedding ceremony, do you, do I, we do, okay, I do, okay, great, power vested me, awesome, take some pictures, okay, cool, let's go feed our faces. All right, we're gonna go across on a lunar journey. We got in the Dodge Caravan that really doesn't caravan anywhere because it barely makes it up the mountain. The rental car game is a scam as well right now.
Dude.
But so there is a Jack in the Box here on Kona. And so I was like, well, you know what we could do? We could get the internet cable, stop by, Jack in the Box, get that ultimate cheeseburger.
Hey, guys.
And truck it back to the crib. And Jake's like, no, we shouldn't do that.
Now, what did I say, though?
You're fat, and we can't have
No,
you
I didn't
eating.
call you fat.
Okay, big bone, same thing.
Okay,
I believe what you said.
It's different.
I believe what you said is you're a rotund MFer with glandular issues. We need to not eat that stuff.
Okay, I don't know about glandular issues, but what I said is that I didn't want the mustard popping out of the burger onto our shirts that we wore at the wedding and leaving evidence.
I did have
a
$100 shirt on. I did have a $100 shirt on.
It was bright pink. It was fabulous. I loved it. And the last thing I wanted was ultimate cheeseburger mustard on the breast pocket.
It was fuchsia.
Okay,
it was not pink.
Jesus,
fuchsia.
What are you, a fashion expert now?
Fashionista.
Jeez.
Anyway, the point is, so Jake was like, yeah, good luck. If we spill on our shirts, it's over. As men, we all know we're going to spill on our shirts. So we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Before we get off this island. Before we hop that bird to Maui.
Yes.
I'm going to Jack, because I don't think there's a Jack in Maui. I could be wrong.
No, I don't think there is.
But I'm going.
Jack in the Box is so good, dude.
I'm going. Diesel D, what's up, my man?
Diesel
he says, hey, guys.
Oh, hey, dude.
There's a dog here.
Well, hi. Hi.
Diesel D says that, like a dog just walked up.
Hey,
Don't know where it came from. Hey, guys, I missed you Friday and this morning. Glad you're on here now. Love your content. I really look up to you both. You have helped me become a better man every day. Great content and everyday knowledge. Wow.
Diesel D, appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate that, man. That's huge. Thank
that.
you. Mark Hale says, I would rather have the Utes win than eat at In-N-Out. My man. My man. My man.
So wait, what is losing to Florida equivalent to? Like in burger terms? Is losing to Florida equivalent to
a McDonald's Big
McDonald's quarter pounder Big Mac garbage? Like
I cannot tell you the only thing I ever eat at McDonald's is breakfast. I do not eat their burgers.
What fast food place did you have a ton of hype about but let you down in the end like Utah did?
The place where you get the orange chicken, the fast food, Chinese food. Oh my God.
Panda Express?
Yes. Panda Express. That place sucks. I am not a Panda Express guy.
This is a code 10 abort.
Look, you ask, I answer.
The orange chicken place. That fast food place.
Yeah, Panda Express.
Yeah.
No, Panda Express was such a letdown. Oh my God.
Yeah. We
never
never
do you guys remember the Elephant Bar?
Vaguely?
Oh, the Elephant Bar. I got dude, the food poisoning at Elephant Bar was real. Disappointing. I'm a huge short rib fan.
Okay.
So, by the way, at the wedding, my sister-in-law we're here for a wedding.
Right.
Poorly timed. Did she not check the football schedule?
Yeah, duh.
They had great food until there was a torrential downpour.
Okay, where does Mac salad rank on your favorite foods in life?
Oh my God.
Because the Mac salad at this wedding was truly incredible. Like, we're talking about, so this wedding last night, right? It's pouring, I'm talking about like open up the floodgates, pouring rain. And we're sitting under this tent and everyone, it's probably, I don't know, 50 people maybe, if that. And we're all eating the food that was catered for the wedding.
And it was good food.
The best part of the food was the Mac salad.
It was amazing.
And everyone's like, save the Mac salad so it doesn't get flooded. They literally took the bowl and put it on a table.
Who's got the best Mac salad?
God, what's oh my, Mo Betta's.
Oh, yeah, Mo Betta's.
Mo Betta's has the best Mac salad in my opinion.
Mo Betta's is amazing.
Yeah.
All right, now we're arguing over burgers. Sir Robin says Panda does suck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on.
Mark Hales. Mark's on a food kick. He says, Utes losing is like eating some French peach pie. peach pie.
This is Coach Saban.
I like it. Mac Mize says, just roll the Post Malone Hot Ones clip. Enough said. Whataburger is the champ.
Oh,
no.
please.
No.
Please.
No. Cam Harrison says, now I want Jack in the Box, as you should. Matt Turley says, Habit Grill is better than all the burgers. I will tell you, the Whataburger at the Habit.
The Whataburger at the Habit?
No, I'm sorry. The Impossible Burger at the Habit. It's early.
Yes.
The Impossible Burger at the Habit.
Yeah.
Pretty dang good, dude.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
Pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Like a dog just walked up. That was weird. Let's see. Tachini Man says casuals getting cut. Hello?
Do you even lift?
I drink too much. Tachini Man. Casuals getting cut. Close your ears with all this food talk. Seriously.
And as you can see, there's not much hope
Seriously.
for you left.
Whoa. Renee Roca says Panda is goat.
Bro, get the hell out of here with that.
No, Panda's not goat. No, it's not.
Are you going to have to block him now? Because,
I might.
I
might.
Yeah.
Mark Stone says, if you want the best burger, it's Habit Burger, grill better than In-N-Out and Whataburger.
Okay, what about Five Guys?
Five Guys is on a different level. That's gourmet burger.
Fair enough. Okay.
I still maintain the best burger in fast food is Jack in the Box.
Yes.
There's just no doubt about it.
Yes.
Matt Turley says the Blue Iguana is Utah football. Sounds cool from the outside, but it's extremely overrated and it has no real substance. Wow. Okay, Matt, that was aggressive. You're not
Are
wrong.
people Myron?
You ain't wrong. M. Morris says Polynesians make the best mac salad, no question.
Totally agree.
By far.
Totally agree.
By far.
Totally agree.
You want to gain weight? Marry into a Polynesian family. Because the food is off the chain.
Yes.
DW2CB says the Habit Burger at Whataburger is amazing also. Okay. Please let that be a real thing that I misspoke into life. Josh Lovren says Panda uses goat more like. Use it. Well, there you go. Panda uses. I am not a Panda Express guy at all. Mac Mai says, what do y'all think of A&M humbling moment? Might have to take the under total. Is there under 8.5 wins? That can't be true. That's
Texas
not true.
A&M?
That's not true.
Bro.
Now I have to look. If you get them, you got to go over that. Is that right? What? 8.5? No, Texas A&M 131-0. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What do you mean humbling moment? What did I miss? Mac Mize. Let's see. DW2 says, I hear that Papa Murphy's has a great burger. That's a lie. They only do pizza. Use promo code Monty25. Renee Roca says, Jack in the Crack is GOAT. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Mac Mize says that's what it was set at. That's what it was set at.
Oh, you're saying that their win total before the season was set at 8.5, and you're saying that
that's
after...
a humbling moment. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Rod Smith says The Rock didn't misbehave during the volleyball game, Tom. Well, I don't know who Tom is. K. Nuren says, when in Hawaii, do not eat anything but Hawaiian. Probably
yeah, I mean,
true.
listen, we had fish last night. We had mac salad. Like
the fish was really good.
The fish was really
good.
good.
The food at this wedding was...
Dude, the pulled pork, incredible. Absolutely incredible.
The fried rice?
Fried rice was good,
The mac salad?
Mac salad was good.
Although, I got to tell you one thing. We got to talk about what you name your salad dressings. There was a moment of consternation at the wedding.
Okay.
Probably because I'm woke. They called it Oriental dressing. The name tag on this salad dressing said Oriental dressing. I'm like, dude.
Bro, what are you talking about,
Oriental is not the proper nomenclature, sir.
What is Oriental?
Like, when did that become
Hey, look
okay?
here, man.
That's like a slanderous word.
Yeah. I mean, what would you have preferred to call it? Like Thousand
Sesame.
Island?
No, call it sesame dressing, because what was it? It was sesame dressing. You can't call it Oriental dressing.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's their wedding, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the caterer, you know. Let's see. Justin Bingham says Cafe Rio is the best thing going right now. Hey, man, just get two chicken tacos with rice and black beans.
And what's really interesting, and I think Cafe Rio's brilliant for this, they put one after security in the Salt Lake airport so you can carry on Cafe Rio to the plane.
Oh, and it was packed.
Absolutely, positively brilliant.
It was packed.
Brilliant.
Packed. All right. Let's see. Mark Stone says, I agree. Jack in the Box, wish they were in Utah. They're about to be.
They're coming with like 25 locations, apparently.
Yeah, I agree. Boyd Lake says Orient means east, guys. No, Oriental, that may mean
Oriental means that
Oriental
it's
is Oriental is an inflammatory word. You're calling, you can't do that. MacMai says, but yes, win total for the season was 8.5. I don't know where everyone was picking them to win the SEC West. I think Arkansas may steamroll them. Losing Mike Elko was a big loss for them. It was, but I mean,
how good are we thinking Arkansas is going to be this year, bro? Like
Arkansas
could
be Arkansas, but we talked about this last week. I think Arkansas can be a 10-win team.
Yeah,
they can. You absolutely you can. K. Nuren says we need Hawaii and San Diego in the Big 12. No, please.
Come on, man.
No, the travel alone, and then do you know how much weight I would gain, like going to Hawaii and San Diego for the Mexican food? The Mexican food in San Diego.
Coyote.
Oh my God! Come on. Let's see. Edwin says, I'm late, but Burley Burger in Ogden is the best local burger. Everybody says that. I haven't been to Burley Burger.
We should go.
Maybe when we go to see our friends at the Barbecue Pit Stop in Logan to pick up the box, we'll go by there. By the way, Barbecue Pit Stop, you have this week.
Yes, that's it.
And then we're going to swoop in and pick up all the boxes to enter to win the BYU Shamrock Series drive-away to see BYU and Notre Dame in Las Vegas on the Monty Show, presented by the Advocates Injury Attorneys, UtahAdvocates.com.